All right, guys, we are back in my garage for another video, and today we are going to be talking about data logging. I'm going to take you guys along with me as I go through and review logs that I've run to see how my car is doing, or review logs that you guys have sent me to help you diagnose issues. And there are a lot of great reasons that you would want to have this skill. Understanding what you see in data logs will help you make sure that your car is running safe, that nothing needs to be changed, and you can just kind of monitor things over time to make sure your car and engine is healthy. And so this is something that I've been doing for a while now, and I know a lot of you guys have asked me for an updated guide since I made one several years ago. Really, it's not outdated, but you know, it's a good thing just to make another video about it. I think a lot of you guys were interested in that. So we'll go ahead and talk about that in this video, and hopefully you guys find it useful. Now, as always, for everybody that's new to the channel, I create these videos to help keep you updated on the latest developments in our community, as well as discuss technical topics so that we have a better understanding of how our engines work. So if you're interested in more videos like that, be sure to subscribe because there will be a lot more coming out in the future. Now, the way you run a log is pretty simple. What you're going to do is go into the tuning app that you're using, connect to your car with your eNet wireless adapter, and go over to the logging section. And then you hit start log, drive your car, and then hit stop log. And after you do that, the car is going to collect all of the data that you've run and have a file ready for you to review. Now, if you want to share this log with me, definitely, you can send me a message on Instagram or send me an email. All of my contact information is down in the video description. Just keep in mind, I get a lot of emails. It takes me a while to review logs sometimes, so please be patient. If you really need help, like super high priority, feel free to join my Patreon. That's the easiest way to get in contact with me. And I really stay on top of messages over there and on our Discord, so I can help you guys if you need like something really right now. But otherwise, at any point, you guys can send me a logs and I will try to get to it as soon as possible. So the easiest way to share logs with me is basically to send me a link to the log so that I can review the data. It's going to come in a CSV file, but that's not really easy for me to review. So either A, if you guys are on boot mode, it should create a link. They have a really cool cloud setup where all of the logs are instantly uploaded to the cloud, and you can share the link from your log directly to me, and I can view it in the boot mode log viewer. If you don't have boot mode, if you're like me and you have MHD or maybe, Ecutech or something like that, then what you'll want to do is go to datazap.me, create an account, and upload that CSV file to the Datazap website. And that will create a window where I can view the logs in there, and you can send that link to me as well. So don't just send me the CSV file. I'm not going to be able to view it. Upload it to Datazap and send it to me, and then I'll be able to review it from there. So now let's go ahead and hop over and look at some logs that I have, again, just to show you how I review logs and some of the things that I've found in logs that you guys have sent me to help you figure out issues with your car. We're going to look at a car that's being dialed in on pump gas with auxiliary meth. So this applies to basically anybody running an auxiliary fuel system. This car has port injected meth, but regular, port injection for E85 or whatever will work the same way. And he basically just wanted me to look at the log and see how things were working because he wasn't sure that his meth was spraying, and he wanted to make sure that it was all good. So usually what I look at first is timing. Since meth is primarily for octane, if you're not spraying your meth, you're going to see your timing drop way down. If it was port injection, I would look at rail pressure, but because this is completely separate from your fuel system, you can't look at rail pressure to tell if your meth injection is spraying. So that's just something to keep in mind. If it's a completely separate system with meth pulling from a separate tank, rail pressure doesn't really tell you a whole lot. So we isolated where our accelerator pedal is 100%, added timing, and look at that curve. Very nice. You're still seeing some timing corrections, but as it goes up in timing, whoosh, straight up to 12, 13, 14. So it's making plenty of timing. The meth is definitely spraying. If it wasn't spraying, you would not be making, 15 degrees of timing on any of your cylinders on just pump gas. So to me, that tells me for sure the meth is spraying. There's another way, of course, that we can tell though, is by looking at our fuel trims. So here, I forgot to add my engine speed. Of course, that's pretty important. Click on that to create a new scale. And let's hide our timing parameters. and add our fuel trims back. So there are two different fuel trims, short-term fuel trims and long-term fuel trims. Fuel trims are basically just a measurement of how much the car is trying to adjust fueling from the base map. So, you know, figuratively, if your car says you need to spray 50% fuel at this instance, but it finds out that it needs to spray 55% fuel, that's basically 10% extra. You're adding an extra 5%. So your fuel trims will be 10%. So that's basically what it's looking at. How much the tune is telling it to spray versus how much it actually needs to spray to hit like target lambda and keep everything safe in your AFRs. And that's what your fuel trims are doing. So it's a really good indication of if the car is adding fuel or pulling fuel. So this is our abbreviation, STFT, short-term fuel trim. So we can see here, you know, fuel trims go up a little bit, and then right around 3,000 RPM, it dumps and it goes down to 0.7. Now, keep in mind, there are a couple different ways that fuel trims are shown in your data logs. Sometimes it's like plus 30% or minus 30%. So it's literally that number plus or minus 30. Other times it's based on a scale of 100% being 1. So that's what this one is. You know, when it's 1, it's spraying 100% of the fuel that the DME is asking, and just that. If it's up to 1.3, then it's adding an extra 30% fuel. And then in this case, if it drops to 0.7, it's pulling out 30% fuel. So it's only spraying 70% of the fuel that the DME is requesting in order to try to hit its target AFRs. Now this again illustrates why you can't just spray meth for cooling, because no matter what, it's going to affect your fueling. The car is going to see it in the AFRs and try to adjust. So thankfully this is a port injected setup, so you're safely getting a consistent amount of meth to all the cylinders, but it seems like the tune wasn't properly dialed in for the meth. It wasn't expecting it. And so now it's trying to pull out as much fuel as possible to keep the AFRs from getting too rich. And so this is definitely an issue. You don't want to run too rich, just like you don't want to run too lean. And this could be causing problems down the line with, you know, potentially flooding the engine, fouling sensors, and just losing power. Even running too rich can be a bad thing for your engine. So I told him that. He actually mentioned that his was like a revision in his tune. He just wanted to make sure that things were okay. But he sent my feedback to his tuner and said that he needs to fix the fueling. I want to reiterate this. I've said it in the past, but I'll say it again. I am not interested in going back and forth with your tuner. I'm not going to argue with what your tuner wants. If you disagree with your tuner, I recommend finding a new one. But please do not put me in an offline back and forth battle and you're telling your tuner, well, Kern said that you need to do this if you want my car to run properly. Let the man work, especially if these are just one of your first revisions. It'll take time to dial it in. Let them work through the revisions. And once it's a final map, if you still think you're having problems, maybe that's a good point for us to talk. But in this case, still, at least for illustration purposes, it was a good point to see how your fuel trims drop when auxiliary fuel comes in. This can also come from a fuel leak. Maybe one of your injectors are leaking and it's spraying more fuel than it should or something like that. Yeah, so a lot of things can be told from fuel trims. Now in this next log, I have somebody that told me they have a stage 2 flash. They floored it, and as soon as they got into boost, the car started misfiring. So anytime that happens, the first thing that I do is look at rail pressure. We all know how that works. So let's open up our accelerator pedal. And here he's only at 80% throttle, but usually because of our throttle mapping, it's going to request more than 80%. So if I leave that on and add throttle angle, you can see throttle angle is much higher. So it's just kind of a part of our tunes. A lot of tunes have a much higher throttle request than what your pedal position is in order for it to make as much power as possible and just feel peppier. So let's go ahead and look at our rail pressure. So we've got high pressure fuel pump target and actual, and there it is. So boost pressure is dropping significantly. Target pressure is around 5,000 PSI on this Gen 2, and it's dropping to 4,600 here, 4,300 here. So significant drops in fuel pressure. Now I told him it's probably because he has too much ethanol in his tank. And the first thing he said was, well, this is a pump gas map, so I can't have that problem. But even if it's a pump gas map, if your tune is requesting too much boost for the amount that your fuel system can support, you can overwhelm your fuel system. So again, this is not limited to people running ethanol. Regardless of what your tune says it should be, this is why you want to run logs. Because sometimes on your car, it just doesn't hold up It doesn't mean your fuel pump is bad. It doesn't mean something's wrong with your car. In my opinion, generally this means the tunes are just too aggressive. So for an off-the-shelf map, it sucks to see this, but thankfully he was able to work it out with his tuner, get a special map dialed in for his car, and now he's able to safely make good power on a pump gas map. Now, the last logs we're going to look at are related to timing, and a lot of you guys ask me about timing corrections, especially in this case. This guy has a pump gas map, and he sees pretty significant timing corrections. He said the timing corrections are everywhere. He doesn't want his car to blow up, so what should he do? So I put this together, see all the timing, and it looks pretty consistent. It looks pretty good. And so I was kind of not sure what he was talking about. Timing is low because it's pump gas. It does have some corrections here. We can even add the timing correction parameters, and we can see there are some timing corrections on certain cylinders, right? But at this point, this is one of the lowest, -3, -3 on cylinder 1, -3 on cylinder 4. So no more than -3 degrees of correction. And in my opinion, this is completely safe, especially on a pump gas map. This is probably one of the cleanest logs I've seen from a timing perspective, because pump gas just does not work well on our cars when we're trying to push it. But he still got really good timing, and I told him, really, you've got nothing to worry about. Now, on the other hand, I have somebody else that asked me about their timing, and this is on E30, and this is an issue that I very much understand because I dealt with the same problem. If we look at the area where he's flooring it, again, we'll add all of the cylinders for timing. You can see there's a bunch of timing corrections. Very similar to the last log that we looked at, except of course in this case he's running a lot more timing. He's hitting up to 15 plus even 16 degrees of timing in certain scenarios. So he's asking me, what's up? If he's running ethanol, how is he getting timing corrections? What could the problem be? And keep in mind, again, ethanol is not foolproof. It's still something that needs to be dialed in properly. It's still something that can vary, and especially when you're running an ethanol mix, the pump gas quality can vary as well. So it really depends on the quality of your pump gas if you're trying to consider how well your fuel is going to work. In my case, on an off-the-shelf map, I've run E35, even up to E37 on an E30 map, just to get clean timing. It's just kind of how things work. I don't have really good quality pump gas, so I need to add more ethanol to compensate. So again, in this case, it wasn't too significant. None of the timing corrections were more than 3 degrees, but just remember, especially after you dial in a tune, as temps get hotter and conditions change, sometimes you're going to see timing corrections that is completely normal. My best recommendation is if you have ethanol, add a little bit of ethanol, or if it's, an off-the-shelf map, you're running 93 octane, maybe try running a 91 octane map instead, because your 93 octane fuel maybe just can't keep up with it if your timing corrections are too excessive. But that's really just kind of a part of the game when it comes to the B58. It's a high compression turbo motor. It's going to struggle with low quality fuel. But yeah, hopefully this helps you guys out if you were trying to understand more about reviewing data logs and how to understand them on your car. Let me know if you guys need any more help. Again, you can message me on any of my social media channels. If you need emergency help, check out the Patreon. Link is in the video description, and that'll be the easiest way to get with me ASAP. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it for this video. So thank you guys for watching, and I hope this helps. And if you have any other questions or comments, leave them down below.